Today's episode has been brought to you by OfferingTree. I am feeling so grateful for OfferingTree this week and really this entire month. I use their booking software because it is so easy to use and makes my life simple because it's automatic. I've been using it in my own yoga business right now to register everyone for my Yoga for Pelvic Health 6-week series, and it saves me time and headache. So the Zoom links, emails, and text reminders are all going out automatic to anyone who registers. People sign up, they pay, they can message me right from there. It has been amazing to use. This all-in-one software that I recommend all the time to yoga teachers, you actually get a discount because you're a podcast listener. So if you're going to check it out, or if you want to grab that discount, that's over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Hello and welcome. This is the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow, and I use she, her pronouns. This podcast is being recorded on Anishinaabeg, Odawa, and Mississauga land, also called the Bruce Peninsula in Ontario, Canada. If you are new here, oh my goodness, welcome. It's amazing to have you join us. You might not know that I'm a mom of 3, a yoga teacher, podcaster, and founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. And for those who are returning week after week, you know the drill around here. This podcast was created for you, the yoga teacher, so that each and every week you can be connected to the information and inspiration that is going to support you as you build this very unique yoga business. And you don't have to feel like you're doing it all alone. And don't worry, I'm here for the long haul for you, asking the tough questions like today's episode. I feel like this is one of those episodes where I was learning as I was asking the questions, and some of them felt uncomfortable. Today, we're focusing on how you can serve yoga students with limb differences. When they walk into your yoga spaces, what can you say and do to make them feel welcome and comfortable, and maybe what not to say or do as well. I remember early days of being a yoga teacher, a new yoga teacher, and someone came into my class with a limb difference, and I did not know what to do. I just remember feeling panicked. I was questioning all of my cues. All of a sudden, I talk about that in today's episode. You'll hear the story. So you might have had a similar experience, or you might be wondering, what do I do when someone with a limb difference comes into my class? Many more people live with limb difference than we might realize, which is why I have invited Melissa DeRico on the podcast today to learn more about people with limb differences and how we can make our yoga spaces more welcoming for them. Melissa DeRico has had a lifelong love of movement. She started dance classes at a young age and eventually found her way to yoga, earning both her 200-hour and 500-hour advanced yoga teacher training from the Yoga Center of Deerfield Beach. Melissa also holds certifications to teach prenatal yoga, yin yoga, yoga dance, and other forms of yoga, as well as offering healing energy work through Reiki. Melissa is currently teaching at the Yoga Center of Deerfield Beach, the Meditate School of Mindfulness, and at Beyond Transformation. Melissa also supports and talks about today in the episode about the Lucky Fin Project. This is a nonprofit organization that's raising awareness and celebrating children and individuals who are born with limb differences and also amputees, so people living with limb difference now. I am so grateful that I got to have this conversation with Melissa and that you get to listen in. I'm excited that you get to learn along with me, and I cannot wait until you hear the language that Melissa uses and the way she approaches yoga and life. And I have a key takeaway and something to share that it's really a nuanced part of this topic when her and I got talking. So I'll share that after the interview. Let's dive in and meet Melissa and learn together. Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, Melissa. It's so great to have you here today.
It is so great to be here talking with you. I've listened to you for so long, and it's just been really nice to prepare for this and to meet you face to face. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So tell our listeners, what has your yoga journey been like? And what is the work that you now do as a yoga teacher or any other work that you do?
So my love for movement, that's my main start. I've been dancing my whole life since I was 2, and danced in college, and taught dance at a private school after college. And I got into yoga more specifically, I want to say I was about 43 years old, and just couldn't teach dance full time anymore. And I was like, I need to do something to move my body and continue. And I went to a few yoga classes, of course, in the gyms, and that's not the kind of yoga that I love. So I stopped for a little bit, and then I went with a friend and I fell in love with it. And a week later, I went on a yoga retreat and fell in love with it even more. I went to Costa Rica, and I just said, well, I have been teaching, pretty much my whole life, been teaching dance since I was 13. And I said, well, I've got that teaching background. I love teaching, and let me see about yoga. So now I have my 200-hour yoga certification and 500-hour yoga certification, Yoga Nidra master certification, Reiki master teacher. The journey just continues and continues. Prenatal yoga, I also I'm certified in that, and that's kind of like where I started to really develop into my niche. I started with the prenatal because thinking that might be the best way to help pregnant mamas get the best out of yoga. So
that's amazing. Did I also see that you took Let Your Yoga Dance as well?
I did, yeah. I Let Your Yoga Dance with Mega from Kripalu, and she's just amazing. And it's been such a great journey with that. Just being free and moving your body. Like there's no specifics, there's no rhyme or reason. And Let Your Yoga Dance moves you through the chakras. So you start at the root, and you go all the way up to the crown, and you really get to the whole embodiment experience with Let Your Yoga Dance. And that's fun. It's a lot of fun. And it's fun teaching it too, and seeing like all your clients that come and take your class, and sometimes husband and wife teams, they come and you can see them, dancing together. It's a lot of fun. Great exercise too.
I took that training with Mega in Costa Rica, and I signed up because I thought, this will be fun. I like dance. I'd like to learn about the chakras. And I feel like it was a whole new experience of the chakras. Yeah.
It was. I mean, I just did her training this past summer, and it was by far the best training I've ever had. Not even just for Let Your Yoga Dance, but just the journey and the path through yoga. That union of like combining everything and just learning about the chakras and the koshas. And I mean, there's just so much. I speak words now sometimes, and it's like, oh, that was Mega. I literally I sound like her. It's so crazy. Like I took the Mega pill, and it was great. That's so cool that you did that as well. That is so neat.
We've never had her on the podcast. I should ask her to do that. It's a long time ago that I studied with her.
Yeah. She has a lot of information in that little noggin of hers. She's just so amazing. So amazing.
So then when I connected with you on Instagram, we started talking about how you live in a body with a limb difference. Please let me know if I'm saying anything that is like, you know what, Shannon, you could say that a little different. So talk to us about your experience and what you live with a limb difference.
Mm-hmm. So limb difference is definitely perfect. It's a different ability. I don't look at it as a disability. It's never for me a disability. I have one hand, and I was born that way. So that's just the way I've been put here on this planet in this body to share my message. And it's taken me a really long time to really get out there and share my message of that, living with it. It's never been a hindrance for me. I was the first one in kindergarten to tie everybody's shoes. It was always like, go to Melissa, let her tie your shoes. And I only have, one hand. So, living with it and being born with it is the congenital limb deficiency or difference, as opposed to someone who may be an amputee. So it's a lot. It's different. So me, it's second nature. It's never been anything different for me. Like I feel like if you were to say, open and close your fingers, like I feel my fingers on the left hand opening and closing. I feel it, even though I don't have it, but I feel like the energy is there. So it's the extension of my body. So growing up, my mother put me in dance to give me, I guess, self-confidence. I was an only child, so I didn't have to compete with anybody. I had me, myself, and I. And I danced my whole life. And that's, I think, what got me to where I am today, dancing. And the first time I've seen a child, I want to say 17 or 18 years old, about to go into college, and a girl saw me dancing and performing on stage at one of my recitals. And she was like, so enamored, I guess. And they reached out to me, and this little girl was like my little liaison growing up, and she joined dance. So that was the first time I've actually seen somebody else with my difference. And now it is so out there. There's so many people that have, missing feet or missing legs or just deformities in their hands and their limbs or arms. So I mean, there's been challenges, but there's always things to overcome. And I think the courage that I had to do dance and put myself out there in front of everybody. Speaking to people is the hardest part, but dancing in front of thousands of people was no problem. I was in the Miss Florida pageant. I was Miss West Hernando in 1991. I think it was, yeah. So that also put me out there, and it didn't stop me. It didn't stop me at all. And then yoga just really has been a game changer for me, a big game changer, and especially with challenging myself and putting myself out there, not to be to have to prove to anybody else but myself, to be a better version of myself. So I started doing hot yoga when I first started. And it was hot yoga, it was vinyasa, it was a fast flow, and I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And people would always ask me, how are you doing that? How are you doing that? I'm like, how are you doing that? How are you doing that? Same thing, So, I just push myself and hope to be an inspiration for anybody else, especially those who say that they can't do yoga. They're not flexible. You don't need to be flexible. Flexibility is in the mind. And if I can do it, and anybody can do it, and then becoming the teacher, somebody comes into my class and they don't know me, they might be like, oh gosh, how is she going to teach me? Like, she's only got one hand. But not that anybody has ever said that to me, but I'm sure people might think. But it's just, it's part of who we are. It's part of, it's defining me as who I am. So I say that I teach yoga with a limb difference. I don't have a limb difference, and I teach yoga. So it's kind of like, I always think of things like glass half full, those kinds of things. So yeah.
That's amazing. I love that you shared that you don't see this as a disability. And it really sounds like you've taken so many opportunities. And I love that your mom just thought, I'm putting you in dance. I want you to have the confidence. That's really
Yeah. Yeah.
fantastic.
No,
So
definitely.
I remember being a yoga teacher. It was early days. It was actually in a hot yoga class, and someone walked in with a limb difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I just felt so panicked. She had a prosthetic leg,
Mm-hmm.
and I panicked. I thought, how am I going to cue this? What about when I say step your foot forward? So, talk to us about what we
Mm-hmm.
do when someone comes to our class with a limb difference.
Well, I just like anybody that would come into the class, um, I guess not looking at them as having something different, but just obviously having that education and the yoga training, and there's so many props that you use and you adapt with, like in down dog. Like I can't put my hands down and have my shoulders be perfectly aligned. So my back is kind of twisted. So what I've done is I put a little thin block underneath my left hand, and I know exactly where to put my block on my hand on, like which corner of the block. Like if you look at it as a clock, it's like at 4 o'clock. And I know exactly where to go, to make my alignment perfect, more perfect for my body. So there's straps, blocks. You can use the mirror. Obviously, if there's something different, you can check yourself if there's a mirror in the studio, using a wall, a chair. Basically, I like to say it's practice, practice, practice. So you're going to fall, you're going to slip. I don't know how many times in down dog, my hand has just like slipped right off of that block and you fall flat on your face. But what do? In yoga, you get up and you move and you keep going forward. So it takes patience, and there's alternatives, modifications. My thing would be, the best thing is to maybe have a conversation. Like as little a tiny little conversation is, "You good? You need anything from me?" Because a lot of times they know coming in what they are dealing with. They know the modifications that they may need. But you as a yoga teacher and me as a yoga teacher, knowing exactly what they would need, blocks, straps. I mean, I've built contraptions with my strap and done things like dancer's pose. I mean, it's like, and me being a dancer can do a pretty good dancer's pose, on my right side with my right hand, but on the left side, I could never get to it. So built that contraption and I got it. So it's just not being, I think, afraid. Just like if somebody comes in that's pregnant, right? Oh my gosh, she's coming in pregnant and all I'm doing is floor belly work. What do you do? So there's modifications. So thinking out of the box, maybe having that conversation. If you have time, before the class, or if you know that they're coming in. Yeah.
That's so helpful. And this is exactly what the student did. I could tell she probably saw the look of panic on my face when she walked in, and she was just like, I'll be fine. and
Yeah.
that was exactly it. I just cued the class like any other class.
Mm-hmm.
I did think when I was about to cue, like, step your foot forward, but I was like, well, that's how I know to cue.
Yeah.
And yeah, she was an experienced yoga student. Was there anything that happened while you were in different yoga classes or while you were in your yoga teacher training where you thought, you know what? I know I get why people are saying this thing or reacting this way, but here, this would be more helpful.
As far as what?
Cues, or I guess I've been in some classes where I think, it's like this uncomfortable moment.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, me being a student in a class with those uncomfortable moments, I just take them as they go. So I think you're more uncomfortable as a teacher than the student is receiving, because the student knows I'm here and I am here as me. I'm here as I am, and I'm going to do the best that I can. Yeah, I don't think there's really that many uncomfortable moments. I think, like I said, you probably feel more uncomfortable
Right.
than the person with a limb difference or an amputee or,
Right. This is so helpful. So helpful to know that. So you don't think there's anything different, using the word limb difference instead of saying someone with a disability. Is there anything around other language or other cues that you would want yoga teachers to know and use?
I would like for it to not be looked at as a disability, an ability, a different ability. So like doing headstand, for instance, with my hand, my one full hand and my small hand, it's like finding that balance. It's just a different way of doing it. A different kind of cueing, a different modification. I guess, I don't know, I guess it's because I've never had such a hard time doing anything.
Right.
Like I've just done it, I think maybe if I had, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at myself going, wow, my little hand does big deal, right? But there are people out there that have, 2 missing hands or 2 missing feet or legs or a difference in level of legs. And, I can't really speak onto that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I really have to break that down.
Well, I think it's helpful just hearing your response to this over and over again. You're just letting me know I've been living with this my whole life, and I feel completely able to to dive in and try anything, to tie everyone's shoes in kindergarten. I'll be there. The one thing that I learned at the Accessible Yoga Conference in Toronto, I took a class with a wheelchair user. And after the class, I said something. I can't remember if I said it on the podcast or if I said it in person. I said something like that class was so inspirational. And there was a bit of a re-education around that, where there were some people that spoke up and said to me, it doesn't feel so great to say that's really inspirational for someone to teach who's a wheelchair user. Can you speak to that in any way, or do you have more to add to that?
So the teacher was in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've taken classes in the dance world with wheelchair teachers. And to me, that's an inspiration. It is an inspiration. I mean, you said it, you hit the nail on the head. Like that is any yoga class is an inspiration from a teacher that really moves you, that moves your heart, that moves your mind. Yeah. I don't know why somebody would say that. I don't know.
I think because of the focus on being able and ableism of saying oh, that's inspirational because you're in a wheelchair. I think it was the fact that, like you said, any yoga class could be inspiring and moving.
Yeah. Yeah. It's their voice.
Right.
Yoga is not, from the lineage that I've learned from, yoga is not just about movement. It's stillness. It's movement in the mind. It's breath. It's consciousness. It's everything else. Sometimes more than just a child's pose or, warrior one. It's more than that. So the inspiration comes from that teacher's voice.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think that's how I kind of look at my classes. Like I teach with my voice and my heart. I don't teach with a missing hand. Like I don't have a missing hand. It's there. The energy's there. It just never developed. That's the inspiration right there. And if everybody looks at everybody's eyes and their inspiration coming from in their soul to their heart, yeah, should be inspirational.
I'm popping in here for a moment, Connected Yoga Teachers, to tell you about OfferingTree. Yes, they sponsor the podcast. That's what's bringing this episode to your ears today. But I also use OfferingTree myself, and I recommend it to yoga teachers and studios all the time. And I'm fussy about companies I work with and companies I talk about. I love this company. I love OfferingTree, the whole package, their team, their values, their customer service, and 100% the product that they have created for yoga teachers. If you run a yoga studio, or if you're an individual yoga teacher, make sure to check them out. But specifically, I want to talk today to the yoga studios out there because I have some exciting news to share with you. OfferingTree is fine-tuning their studio software with the help of the yoga teacher community and the studio community. So if you want to be part of this process, they want to hear from you. Now, I want to highlight this. This is one of the things that really makes me appreciate a company. So they've created an amazing booking software for studios, and now they're asking a few studios for feedback. And I happen to know, I have insider information that those studios get a really amazing deal on the price. So if you're feeling like, we're a studio, we want to talk about this, we have some input to give for sure, and we're looking at switching to a software that is simpler, cheaper, easier to use, and really set up in the way that you want it to be set up, reach out to them. So you can email them hello@offeringtree.com. And if you sign up for their booking software, make sure to use the discount code offeringtree.com/Shannon. That'll give you a little break on the price. Or if you're talking with them and emailing back and forth, let them know that you heard about them on the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast and tell them that you're hoping to also get the discount code for podcast listeners. All right, so that's a little news break, and let's get back to our interview with Melissa. I am also thinking and wondering, because you said that you were born with this and you never knew any difference, have you talked to colleagues or friends or anyone who has a limb difference where it's a new thing for them? And I'm thinking with regards to yoga, like it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like to me, you were born this way. You accepted your body from early days. You learned how to do everything in amazing ways and never felt this was a disability. What would you say to someone who is feeling like, okay, this limb difference feels like a disability to me?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's people like this podcast, just talking about it and acknowledging it, witnessing it, acknowledging it, seeing the great things that people can do with missing limbs. There's quite a few people to follow that have written books and websites and teacher trainings and everything. One of my inspirations is Marsha Danzig. She has a website, Yoga for Amputees, and she's an amputee. So she wasn't born with a limb difference, but she, teaches classes, yoga classes for amputees. She's wonderful. And organizations like the Lucky Finn Project, who I sponsor a lot, I've done quite a few things for them, like on my birthday, on Facebook, where you can choose your charity, to donate. And I set a pretty lofty goal and I made it. And just to see those people encouraging me through them, the Lucky Finn Project, they help link parents to medical information and resources. They'll provide education limb differences, and it's kids and adults, with those limb differences or amputees, helping them obtain prosthetics, specialized camps. There's all kinds of things. So there's a lot of information out there, but there's not a lot of information on yoga per se with congenital birth defects, if you want to call it that. So I used to call it a birth defect my whole life, birth defect. But then I thought, what does the word defect mean? Means damaged. And I'm not damaged. I am whole. I am perfect exactly the way I am. And I think that's where I try to build that confidence. So
that's a great way that you've taken. I would imagine that in the medical world, then that we were like, okay, we'll define it as this, as a birth defect. Do you remember what made you change your language in that and decide, no, I'm not saying that anymore?
Well, yeah, because God, it must have been, I think when I maybe got married or so. I got married around 30, and then I started having kids. I have 2 kids, 2 teenagers. And holding the baby with my left arm, which is the arm that's missing my hand, and doing everything else with my right hand. I'm like, there's ability there. There's extra ability, to do that kind of stuff. So I think I really started to look at it differently then. I'm very proud. My mother, my father, my family have always, well, actually, I shouldn't say always. They've never treated me anything different other than just being human, just being me and encouraging me. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what, back, I was born in 1972. So back then, ultrasounds were not as great as they are now, the technology, and they couldn't see. So when I came out, here I was, and they thought maybe it was the amniotic fluid band syndrome, or something that's called symbrachydactyly. It occurs during like the normal embryonic development. I guess the baby's hands begin to form in the utero, and then they're shaped like these little mittens with nubs, which is what I have. So there's not really a diagnosis, and I don't like it to be something that's diagnosed, because I just am.
I love that so much. I'm learning a lot about the differences in how we're born as humans, and the differences that aren't always talked about or aren't always seen as this. Actually, it is very normal to have very different bodies and very different minds. This has been around forever, and it's not always been embraced. So I love this story. Thank you for sharing that with us. I love that you're saying I just decided I'm not using this word disability. I am whole. I am who I am. And that you really saw that motherhood. You were like, oh yeah, look at me rocking this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Between that and, and the yoga in my later life, my journey started, not too long ago. And it's just given me that freedom, more freedom to be seen. I always say, I see you, but I want to be seen. So I think that's where, it comes into my play, and it helps me with my psychological being as well. My spiritual wellness, all of that, being whole.
Is that something that you've gained from doing yoga? Or is there anything else where you think, oh, I'm learning the philosophy of yoga and this is really applying to my life? Is there anything in there?
Well, I think I learned it from a young age, through dance, but it wasn't until yoga and the philosophy, and still learning the philosophy, every day something new, that it clicked. It's like my yoga teacher. She says we already know everything. we already know everything we need to know. We just need to remember. So yoga has always been there, but when I was young, I didn't know it was there. So just getting into that, that progression, that perfect place. We're here exactly where we're supposed to be, meant to be at this right time in this body.
Yeah. Where are you teaching now, and how can our listeners, can they join a class with you? Did you say that you were teaching online?
Yeah. I'm a studio manager at Yoga Center of Deerfield Beach in Deerfield Beach, Florida. So a lot of people come down here and to Fort Lauderdale and snowbirds or whatever. So we definitely welcome anybody. It's a lovely studio. We're about, I want to say it's like 54 years old. We're one of the oldest yoga studios in South Florida. So we welcome everybody. We have over 18 classes online, and I think 10 of those classes are in studio as well. So we're a hybrid studio right now, especially during pandemic. But yeah, so yogacenterdb.com, and you can find me there.
Oh, that's exciting.
Teaching yin. I teach yin with Reiki. I do yoga nidra, and in person I do sound healing as well. So that's something I should have brought up, the sound healing with all the crystal bowls and everything. I'm like a one-man band, one-arm bandit. It's like at the end of the night, I'm like, oh, my shoulder. But so just making music and beautiful sounds with one hand doesn't stop me. So you would never know I didn't have two hands doing my bowls. So.
Do you teach that as an online class as well? And the reason why I'm asking is I'm so curious. No, you don't. Because does the sound
online
work?
Yeah, no. I mean, you could do sound healing online through like Facebook Live or Instagram Live, because the technology of the wavelength of transmission of sound is much better than Zoom. Zoom can only hear voice. That's
right.
It. So.
Right. Yeah, it's just not good at picking that up. So you could potentially share it on those other platforms, or have it record it or something.
Yeah, you could record it. Yeah, right. You could record it. You have to be like in maybe a sound studio, or a lot of really more expensive equipment than I already have. We've gotten in the age of equipment. Like, what happened to just teaching yoga? Now we're like, have so many different modalities, ring lights and computers and microphones and adapters and cords. It's crazy.
It is. It's a lot that we've had to adapt to. Yeah. And it's pretty amazing, though, that our listeners could listen to this podcast and then sign up for a class with you, which probably didn't exist before the pandemic, that we could just listen and then sign up. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would love to have anybody come join my classes. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you are also a busy mom of teens. I mean, that in itself is like a whole interesting job. I know, because I have some that isn't talked about enough. You're managing a yoga studio, teaching a lot of classes, it sounds like, teaching hybrid classes. How do you fit this all in? How do you make it all work together?
I love to be busy. I've always been on the go all the time. My full-time job during the day is I'm a fine arts office manager at a private school. So I support over 35 music, drama, theater, dance teachers. So that's my full-time job, which is what I love, with teaching dance. And then my passion in the evening, my other part is doing the yoga and teaching mindfulness and meditation and sound and yin. So,
oh my gosh, that's amazing! I didn't even know that you had a full-time job on top of all of that.
Yeah, it goes to show I don't have a boyfriend. My mom always says, "What are you going to do if you ever, find somebody to love?" And I'm like, right now, I love my kids. I love what I do. So that's, and I'm always a firm believer of divine timing.
I think that's really wise, and it's amazing that your energy is going in so many different ways. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this today. I feel like it might bring up some more questions for our connected yoga teachers, which they can put in the comments section on our website. But I feel like it probably will also just give them some confidence. You know what? This person walking into your class can figure it out. They were born this way, and it's not a disability. It's a whole other ability.
Yeah, a different ability. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would say to yoga teachers? You know, the moment someone walks into their classroom, they have a limb difference. Anything else you would share with them?
I would just say, you got this. You got this. And just lead with your heart. Teach with your heart. The true yoga is in your heart, and it'll all work out. It'll all work out. Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Connected yoga teachers, as Melissa and I got chatting after our official interview, sometimes this happens, she had more wisdom to share, and I wanted to make sure that we included it here on the podcast. So have a listen to this snippet where she's talking about how a helicopter yoga teacher doesn't feel helpful to her.
So the hard part, I feel, is when they're over helicoptering, if that's the right word to say.
Yes.
I don't know, like over offering, over focusing, because then that makes, the yogi a little more uncomfortable. So kind of meeting halfway, finding those verbal cues, seeing what's needed. You'll feel it in your gut, what they need, and offer, but just kind of at a distance sometimes is better than just being overzealous with that, the student.
Yeah. I think we could all think of what that might feel like if all of a sudden the teacher was coming over to us all the time.
Yeah. And that's happened to me.
Yeah.
A couple times. And sometimes I'm like down or doing a pose, and I'm like, I got this. Giving my thumbs up, I got this.
Right. That's super helpful. Thank you for adding that.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Wow. I learned so much during this interview, and I'm so excited to hear from our connected yoga teachers who got to learn along with me while I ask you these questions. And this is one of those interviews where I wish I had this, as that newer yoga teacher before that student walked into my class with a limb difference. But the great news is that many of our yoga teachers who are listening might not have been in that situation yet, and they get to hear your voice and hear your knowledge and hear your words, and I'm really excited about that. One note, connected yoga teachers, and kind of a key thing that I'm still thinking about is you heard me talking to Melissa during the interview about how I was looking at my own language and how it might be causing harm with regards to me saying that I was inspired by a yoga class that was taught by a wheelchair user. And I'm going to link to an article that I think really summarizes it so well. So it's written by Erin Tatum, and it's on the Everyday Feminism website. It's called 7 Reasons to Stop Calling Disabled People Inspirational. And that article helped me a lot when people were telling me that it was harmful when I was saying that this yoga class and this yoga teacher was inspiring. So that really helped me. And we talked about it back in episode 92. And that was the episode with Elliot Kessy, Chantel Eller, and Katie Juleson. And that was where we really dug into some accessible yoga and how we can make yoga more accessible with language. It was so far back that I couldn't remember which episode it was when I was talking with Melissa, so I'll link to that as well. So you can go back. If you want to hear us talking just about that topic alone, it was at the 36-minute mark. And if you think, no, I just want to read an article, this 7 Reasons to Stop Calling Disabled People Inspirational is an amazing read. It'll really give you something to think about for sure. And I just appreciate Melissa's answer in this, in that there were many things that I could say were inspirational about that yoga class. And we can find a lot of inspiration from yoga teachers all over the world. Hopefully we are attending yoga classes where we feel inspired and uplifted when we are led into our own yoga practice by an individual, by a yoga teacher. And I think it's also important to note kind of the thought process that goes along with things when we're talking about disabled people and we're saying that person is an inspiration. So if you want to get into the nuance of it, I appreciate it so much if you're here to learn with me as well. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here today to listen to this entire interview. I would love to hear your thoughts and your questions. If you have a limb difference, I would love to hear how you are showing up in your yoga practice and what works for you and what hasn't been helpful as well. You can share your comments over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/289 or share them with our community in our Facebook group. If you look for the Connected Yoga Teacher website, the join button is right on our homepage. Or if you're on Facebook, search for the Connected Yoga Teacher group, and that will take you right to our Facebook group. It's so nice when you share your thoughts on podcast episodes because then it becomes more of a two-way conversation, not just me talking to you. For instance, Lisa Patterson left a comment on our website way back in November of 2021 about an episode that we did with Shelley Prosco on pain language. And I wanted to share it here on the podcast. So Lisa said, "Lovely. Thank you, Shannon and Shelley. It's rare that I take the time to listen to a podcast, and I really appreciated this one. I love Shelley's cue about the blanket under the knees for more luxury. I'm such a fan and a big practitioner of invitational language, and so I'm very on board with all of this. Some of my favorite words in teaching and beyond are maybe, possibly, I wonder if, what do you notice about this, and can you give yourself the freedom to be still when I'm moving, or to move when I'm still, if that's what your body seems to be asking for. Shannon, your vocal tone and pace are so wonderful to listen to, so suited for a podcast. Thanks again so much. Sincerely, Lisa Patterson, yoga therapist, movement educator, meditation teacher, and lover of sunflowers." Oh my goodness, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing the cues that you love to use. That's why I wanted to include it here on the podcast. And thank you for listening to, even though it's a rare thing, listening to the episode that was episode 116 with Shelley Prosco, and it ended up being 2 parts because Shelley and I can talk for a long time. Shout out to Shelley for being as excited as I am about yoga and movement and the language that we use. So I will link to episode 116 if you're interested and you want to go and have a listen of how you can really make a difference with the language that you use. And I think it goes along well with today's episode. Yes, sometimes it can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at all of the words that I'm saying, and we don't want to feel stuck and feel like I can't say anything. And we also, at the same time, really want to continue to learn of how we can support people with the language that we use and not be causing harm. Have you left us a review yet? If you haven't, go and check. Look over at iTunes and see if you left a review for the podcast, because we love it when you leave us a review. Tell us what you love about the podcast. Tell us what you wish was there. Tell us what you dislike even. You can tell us anything in that review. We oftentimes read them out on the podcast. So if you do leave a review, tell us who you are, where you are, and the work that you do as a yoga teacher. If you're on the go, all of our show notes are over on our website, and we gather the links and we have timestamps for you so you can go back and find something specific. I'm a podcast listener, and when I hear something on a podcast, I really want to know that there are some notes that someone took for me, and I don't have to do that while I'm on the go. We've done that for you. Today's episode is over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/289, or you could go to our website and search limb difference, and today's episode would pop up. Or Melissa DeRico. Our search is, I use it all the time on our website to find where did I talk about that thing? So Make sure to check out our website as well over at theconnectedyogateacher.com. There are some really cool ways where we can hang out together as well. I want to tell you about that. Right now, they're all online. Here in Canada, I'm wrapping things up in my garden, getting ready for winter, getting ready for maple syrup season with my family in the spring. And so that means like gathering wood and making sure everything's wrapped up in the garden and getting ready for big snowstorms. So I'm not traveling this fall or this winter too far, but we can meet online. So today is a really big day. A couple of things are happening today if you're listening in real time, but don't worry, there are replays and there are ways to access this later. So we're having a talk inside of Pelvic Health Professionals all about endometriosis and pelvic health. And I'm really excited because Jill Mueller is coming in. She's a PT who lives with endometriosis. And I think that's super important. We want to know that someone has that experience. That gives them like a little extra expertise in the topic, that's for sure. Also in October, Dr. Sarah Reardon is going to be talking with us about pelvic floor hypertension. So what happens when the pelvic floor is holding too much tension? That's also inside of Pelvic Health Professionals. So all of this is over at pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Oh, and one new thing that I've just added onto the calendar because of a great question from our pelvic health professional members is I have a 3-hour training happening October the 24th. I have literally just put it on my calendar. I don't even have a website page for it yet, but it is coming and hopefully it's ready by the time this episode goes out. You can sign up for this alone, but my question would be like, why? So it's included in our Pelvic Health Professionals membership. So that would mean that you pay less and then you sign up for our membership and you actually get more. But seriously, I know some of you are like, no, I don't want more. I just want to sign up for this one thing. I don't want hours and hours of education around pelvic health. That's fine. If you are a yoga teacher who's working with people who have a pelvis, definitely check out this training. I am going to be talking about all of the basic things that I wish, and I believe that every yoga teacher needs to know about the core, the pelvic floor, and much, much more. Oh my gosh, I could write a song about it or a poem. That's rhyming. Core, pelvic floor, and much, much more. So if you are wondering about that, head on over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com. And like I said, I really think the value is there when you join the membership. You can access everything. So I have a 6-week Yoga for Pelvic Health series where I'm teaching 6 classes that's going on right now. It's about to end here at the end of September. That's included. So you get the replay to that. You get access to every single call, all of our live calls. That's why I'm saying, if you're like me and you're frugal and you like a good deal, the membership is really the way to go. Something else included in the membership is November the 7th. We are talking with Libby Hinesley about hypermobility and pelvic health. So we had Libby on the podcast here talking with us about hypermobility. And now we've invited her as a guest expert inside of Pelvic Health Professionals to talk to us about what happens when someone is dealing with hypermobility, what happens with their pelvic health. Oh, and one other thing that is happening today, I'm super excited. All of that other stuff is like I'm hosting, I'm teaching, that's really my thing. But I am a student beginning today. I am going to start the Accessible Yoga Teacher Training run by my good friend Jeevana Heyman and the team over there. I'll also make sure to link to that in our show notes in case you're interested in that training. Maybe you'll be there. And if you are there, say hello to me. It would be so cool to hang out as students together. Next week on the podcast, Ashley Hagen is coming to talk with me about the best microphones for teaching online yoga. This happened because I had an issue with my microphone teaching online yoga. And because, as you know, when you're teaching online yoga, you have a microphone that you preferably have attached to you and you can move around. I had an issue with it. I Googled it. Ashley popped up right away. I know Ashley. And so I reached out to her and said, can you answer some questions? And realized that, oh my gosh, she's a fountain of information. Everything to do with teaching online, microphones, all of the tech questions. So you'll get to hear all of that next week. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast so that it just gets downloaded automatically. You don't have to remember to go and do all of that. It just will be in your feed ready for you. Huge shout out of thank you to Suzanne Crunch Sinead for doing all of the work behind the scenes to make this podcast possible. And also thank you, dear listener. It means so much that you've hung out today all the way to the end of this episode. And I just feel immense gratitude that this is how you've chosen to spend your time, that you've really invested in your own education and your own yoga business and your own yoga knowledge and just like knowledge around being a good human. And it's really an honor that you are listening to the podcast. So thank you. As I sign off, I would like to ask you a question. What will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?